So this in this passage from the Epistle to James, it talks about kind of making predictions about the future, and this is what I was talking about. For some of you who had questions, this is what I was saying about like functional atheism. Functional atheism says, "Come now, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a town and spend a year there doing business and making money." In a sense, we live our lives as if God is not a part of those plans, right? And he says, basically, you would do better to say, if the Lord wishes, or has the Lord wills, we will go to such a place. It's fascinating. That's dropped out of our lexicon. But when I was with the Christians in Southern Sudan, this is something they would say all the time. Like if we were making plans for the days, they would say, well, if the Lord wills, we will go to this village, and then if the Lord wills, we'll go proceed to that village. That they so incorporated this word from the Epistle of James, and it actually wasn't that much of a stretch in their culture to acknowledge that the divine is involved in your travel plans, in your daily rhythms and routines and ambitions and goals. And so this is something they would constantly say. And I remember our Jeep got stuck in the mud, and so the wheels were turning, and so then we all got out, and we were all like trying to rock and push the Jeep out of the mud in the road, and then they said on the final place, like kind of 1, 2, and then the Sudanese clergy person who was with us said, "In the name of Jesus," and we all pushed out, and so we pushed that Jeep out of the mud in the name of Jesus. That's just and it just flows out of the heart that they truly felt that Jesus was helping us push that Jeep, and I'm sure he was. And so in some ways, I think that this is an encouragement. The Epistle of James is an encouragement to really retrain our brains. It really takes some effort to really retrain our brains and say, no, God really is involved in the efforts of my life, in the details of my life. God is involved, and God desires to give his grace, to give his power, whether it's pushing a Jeep out of the road or out of the mud on the road, or getting you safely from one place to another, to acknowledge the Lord's will. We say it in the Lord's Prayer. It shouldn't just stay in the Lord's Prayer. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's supposed to be operationalized in our daily living. If the Lord's will be done. So let us acknowledge him in all our ways. Let us retrain ourselves to think that from thinking that typically our default is that we're basically on our own until we stop and maybe get in a jam, or we want his help to give us a little added 10% bonus, a little frosting on the cake. That's how we typically do it. You're on an airplane, and then the turbulence, and then you start praying once there's turbulence. Well, you should have been praying when you made the reservation in the first place. See, that's how we should begin with the prayers. So train our brains to acknowledge that God is with us. He really is with us. And so we can commit ourselves to him and ask for his grace all the time in all the things we're doing. We don't have a business life over here and then a religious life over here. It's one life in which we are called to love God and love our neighbor and serve God and serve our neighbor with everything that we have, with God's power, according to his will. A reading from the Epistle to James. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a town and spend a year there, doing business and making money. Yet you do not even know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wishes, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. Anyone, then, who knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, commits sin. Come now, you rich people, weep and wail for the miseries that are coming to you. Your riches have rotted, and your clothes are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver have rusted, and their rust will be evidence against you, and it will eat your flesh like fire. You have laid up treasure for the last days. Listen, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud. Cry out, and the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. You have lived on the earth in luxury and in pleasure. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the righteous one, who does not resist you. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.